The effects of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports on student academics and behavior. My name is Amber Piepert, and I teach at Expo Alternative Learning Center in Waterloo, Iowa. I teach in the middle school disciplinary program. The problem that I'll be focusing on, my literature review, is does the use of school-wide positive behavior interventions and support in the school environment improve students' behavior and increase their academic achievement? Brief overview. I have a quote from Ruiz and Sherman. Disruptive behavior within the school setting interferes with effective classroom instruction and deteriorates the overall educational climate of the school. Which leads me into the past research. Behavior problems often lead to negative student-teacher relationships and less time spent on academic instruction. Increased level of behavior problems have been seen across the grade levels. Students with challenging behavior often have educational experiences that include ongoing problematic relationships with peers and adults. Purpose statement. My research question is, does the use of school-wide positive behavior and interventions in the school environment help with students' behavior issues improve academic achievement? The purpose of my study is to investigate the implementation of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports to determine if it has a positive impact on students' behavior and academic performance. Some of the gap in the research that I found was that studies show an increase in academic achievement using school-wide positive behavior interventions and support. The impact. This will provide schools with valuable information regarding the impact school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports can have on students' behavior and academic success. What is the impact on educators? This research would benefit districts who have yet to implement school-wide positive behavior interventions in their school environment. The method. I chose to complete a review study because they provide an evaluation of existing studies and may identify gaps in those studies. It may help in drawing conclusions from the literature review. Some of the demographics in my study were grades K through 12, an autistic classroom, and an alternative school. The periodical resources that I used for my materials were Academic One File, Sage Journals, Academic Elite, and Google Scholar. Some of the keywords that were searched were PBIS, academic achievement, PBIS outcomes, and behavior intervention. I used a 2018 5.6-inch Dell 5590 Core i5 computer to complete my research. I used the comparative research method during my study. I researched 12 articles. And if you look below, I have my literature matrix, which I can show you. Here you can see my literature matrix I used. I have my references, what the focus of the review was, the setting in the participants in each review, methods that were used to collect data, the categories of risk factors and challenges that the researchers developed, and also the results of my study. Conducting the research review. The first thing I did was on the first read-through, the researcher used a yellow highlighter to search for common themes and words used throughout the articles. An orange highlighter was then used on the second read-through to highlight any data that was missed through the first reading. The collection of themes are documented in Table 1. These words were most prevalent throughout the 12 research articles. I recorded the most common words throughout the research articles in Table 1. The words were categorized according to the theme. Table 2 displays the 2 themes that were created based on the data collected in Table 1. The final phase for data analysis was comparing and selecting within each of the main themes. Some of the results that I concluded were: data indicated on-task behavior increased an average of 10% per classroom, and incident reports declined 9.8% from the previous 2 years. The next study by Carnett, 2015, this study verified success in the fact that observations determined that students' on-task behavior when using positive reinforcements increased from 45% to 59.7%. The study showed from Hollingshead an increase of 21.6% from the baseline to the intervention phase. My results continued. The study showed an increase of 21.6% from the baseline to the intervention phase. This indicated that there was a positive change between the independent and dependent variables. Flannery, Fleming, Cato, and McIntosh, 2014, implementing school-wide positive behavior interventions and support resulted in office discipline referrals. The SET scores increasing from year 1 to year 2. In the first year, the SET scores were at 0.12, and by year 3, the SET scores were a negative 31. This shows that as the SET scores increased, student behavior decreased. James, Notamayo, Ritchie, and Palmer, 2019, determined that the findings indicated that when schools increased fidelity of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports, the district had 4.05% fewer suspensions per 100 students. Here is how I collected my data and put it into a table. I have each of the researchers, and then I have what school district makeup they used, and then I have the results in column number 3. So Noltemeyer in 2019, their study was completed in 55 school districts in Ohio, which they used 153 of those schools. 70% on Tier 1 TFI had significant fewer out-of-school suspensions per 100 students. Ruiz, 2012, used grades 7 through 8 from 2005 to 2008 in their study. They determined that the decrease of 23% in the number of discipline referrals from year 1 to year 2, 22% decrease from year 2 to year 3. Griffiths, 2019, grades 7 through 12, 175 students in an alternative California school. They determined on-task behavior was up 10%. Incident reports declined 9.8% from the previous year after implementing school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports. My results continued. Simonson, 2012, studied 428 schools in Illinois, 125 districts. That was 274 elementaries, 46 middle schools, and 17 high schools. They determined less than 1% of the suspensions and discipline referrals decreased. Unlu, in 2014, studied a third grade students in a public school with a 34-student classroom. Student 1 reduced negative behavior from 83% to 31%. Student 2 reduced negative behavior from 82% to 34%. In James, in 2019, studied 85 Ohio schools from 2015 to 2016, and from 2016 to 2017. They determined that increased TFI Tier 1 by 14.67% points, 4.05 fewer suspensions. Connection to past research and theory. I use the Maslow hierarchy of needs. If you look over on my picture, I have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs: self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging, safety needs, and psychological needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs puts human needs into one of the 5 categories in the school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports. As positive behavior supports are implemented into the educational environment, students who have a higher need will need more support introduced. Maslow's hierarchy of needs provides reinforcement that if deficiency and growth needs are met, students will ultimately see a positive increase in student success. If teachers are creating an environment that addresses each student's lower level of needs, they will be able to provide them with the tools to increase students' engagement and reduce negative behavior. Implications. The school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports is a framework of systematically organizing and implementing evidence-based behavior supports to all students to promote positive academic and behavioral outcomes. When students are taught to effectively use the skills incorporated in the school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports framework, they will be able to use these skills beyond the classroom. Teachers and staff across the globe have discovered what a great addition school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports has been for their students. Schools that are consistently implementing the core components of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports are more likely to achieve desired changes in students' behavior. Evidence-based universal interventions that support student social and academic competence represent one promising approach to promoting students' schools' success. As more educators discover the positive relationships between school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports and student success, not only will we see additional studies promoting effectiveness, but increased student benefits. Limitations and recommendations for future research. To successfully gauge the impact of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports has had on students' behavior and academic achievement, more studies must be completed that use multiple measures of effectiveness to ensure the most accurate outcome. Several of the articles consisted of a very small sample size in the same educational environment. This limited if findings could be generalized in a much larger population of students, and it was hard to find significant relationships from the data. Schools that were mentioned in some of the research failed to accurately incorporate critical features that needed to be followed with fidelity. If not all staff members, administrators, and students follow the practices, researchers are not able to successfully determine if school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports are making a difference in the student's education. Further studies are required to investigate the academic effects of school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports based on the students' overall behaviors throughout the implementation. More studies should use multiple classrooms and a variety of different environments to expand the data collection. Here are the references used throughout my presentation. Thank you for watching my presentation.